This is video 2 in a 10-part series on my overall comprehensive analysis of my experience at Notre Dame, what's good, what's bad, what I liked about it, what I did wrong, what I did right. Hope you enjoy. In this video, we'll be talking about the 5 worst things about Notre Dame. Preface this, Notre Dame is a great school, it's a fantastic school. None of these things should be absolutely red flags from attending here, but there are things that certain students may not like and maybe be reasons to not attend. But take my opinion with a grain of salt. I just wanted to give the 5 worst things considering I did the 5 best things. And ultimately, my goal with this video is not to be complimentary, but to be honest, because ultimately, if you want to have a good experience, you should be at the place that connects with you best. And if I just tell you the good things and don't tell you the bad things, then you might end up at a school that's not a good fit for you. So let's get into it. First, worst thing about Notre Dame. This is one that you'll see online. Many people will say, I don't agree as strongly, but I will say the weather. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I know what cold weather is like, but at Notre Dame, it's a little bit different because you have to really walk to classes, so you're gonna be outside a lot. And the thing about the weather is not that it's just cold, but it's more so that for about half of the school year, it's either gonna be gray, rainy, cold, snowy, or sleety. So it might not just be snowy, it might not just be cold, but it's just kind of this overall eternal grayness that takes over campus. I don't think it should be a deal breaker. And in many ways, I think that having such weather combined with the beautiful weather you get in the fall and the spring makes the great weather even so much better. But for many people, it kind of sucks. Second thing, girl and guy relationships. So what do I mean by that? I'll pose you a question. You may know a Notre Dame alumni. I will ask you to ask them, who are the friends you stay in touch with? Do you have a group chat? And I will say in 70 to 85% of the times, the group chat that they're in from college is single sex / the guys they probably, or girls they probably met in their dorm. This is not a bad thing, but it's just a note of caution and something that I think other schools do better. At Notre Dame, it feels like it's guy friend groups, girl friend groups, and then they come together if they're gonna be friends. With other schools, I think it's more intermixed of guys, girls, in one friend group. But at Notre Dame, it feels like for many reasons, some ways there's a guy dorm, girl dorms, that plays a role, that the fluidity in relationships is lower than other schools. So that is just something interesting that I noticed throughout my 4 years at Notre Dame and something that I've never really heard many people talk about. The third thing I will say about the worst thing about Notre Dame are the rules. So at Notre Dame, it's an elite school. It's a school steeped in tradition and hierarchy, and there are a lot of rules. So overall, I think that these rules promote the common good, but in certain occasions, I think that they are subtractive, not additive. OCS, the Office of Community Standards, the people that enforce drinking and hazing stuff, has a reputation for being notoriously terrible. Student Activity Office, SAO, is notoriously difficult to work with and make it hard for clubs to run. And dorm rules can be a bit strict at times, more so depending on which dorm you're in, whether it's girls, guys, what rector you are. But in general, I think many students will have situations in which the strong and large amount of rules at Notre Dame cause some sort of discomfort. Whether that is warranted is up for discussion, but yeah, I think there are sometimes these overburdening rules that can kind of impede on people's experiences. This one might be controversial, but yeah, that's fair. This next one also might be a bit controversial, but I think at the heart, a lot of people would understand it or agree with this, and it is diversity of student. So just hear me out on this one. So it's a bit hard to articulate, but when I say diversity of student, I don't mean demographic diversity. What I mean is diversity of thought and action. So Notre Dame does have less demographic diversity as well. But when it comes to diversity of thought and action, Notre Dame is not the best in that regards. So before I dive into what that means, I'll just kind of go after what the steel man against my case is. And that is, someone would say, Drew, you are wrong. Look at all the clubs there are. There are hundreds of clubs. Look at all the interests. Look at all the sports people play. Look at all the careers that people have. And I would say to them, that is 100% true. There are a lot of interests. There are a lot of clubs, and Notre Dame is not a monolith. There's not a specific stereotype that embodies. But I would say to them is that compared to other parts of the country, compared to maybe other schools as well, compared to just the wide breadth of what America is as a whole, Notre Dame kind of is a tiny subset of what America is like. It's not real in the sense of the students that, in general, the students that go here. And there are exceptions to this. There are people from all walks of life, people from India, people from Texas, people from Alaska, people from Argentina, wherever. There's people from everywhere that have all sorts of opinions. But if you're looking for a school that is filled with anarchists, rebels, renegades, free thinkers, artists, creatives, whatever, people that don't fit a conventional mold, people that are outside the box thinkers, Notre Dame has some, but it is not the school that is filled with people like this. In general, the people at Notre Dame are awesome. They're driven, they're somewhat agreeable, they're holistic, they were probably varsity athletes, and they're awesome people. But the idea of being a rebel is probably not the number one word I would say when it comes to Notre Dame students. There are outliers that exist. They do exist, just at lower rates. And in some ways, I think that this is good, and Notre Dame wouldn't be the same school it was if it was filled with all these kind of strange people or outlier people or kind of unique, kind of individualistic people. Because Notre Dame has a strong community, and I think it is because there are certain themes and characteristics that ties everyone together. And in another way, it can be good because if you are different, you can stand out, which can be bad, can be good, depending on how you look at it. Okay, the last thing I'll say, the worst thing about Notre Dame is proximity to airport. So South Bend has an airport that's a 15-mile drive or 15-minute drive from campus, and that is great. But I'm living in New York now, and the flights to South Bend are quite expensive, so you will have to fly to Chicago, take a train to the train station, take a 2-hour train to South Bend, and then take an Uber to campus. So it can be a bit difficult if you can't fly into South Bend. Being 2 hours from Chicago poses some logistical hurdles. It's not too bad, but just a slight annoyance. Lastly, I want to just say this. If you watch other videos talking about the worst thing about Notre Dame, many people will say it's location. It's in South Bend, a city in the Rust Belt, a city that is peaked in the 1900s, even though it's seen some ascension over the past few years, and what I would argue is underrated. It's a city where there's not many traditional amenities of a big city. You know, Northwestern's near Chicago, Columbia's near New York, USC's near LA. South Bend is none of that. But I would argue that it being in South Bend is additive to the experience. If Notre Dame was plopped in any of those cities in New York, LA, NYC, Houston, whatever, it would take away from the community that's on campus. What makes Notre Dame special is its on-campus community. If there were clubs they could go to, events in the city they could go to, that would take away from people attending dorm parties. That would take away from people attending dorm events. There'd be this pressure to do the big thing in the city versus just enjoying what is on campus. And because I think it's in South Bend, it forces people to enjoy the campus experience, to engage in the campus experience. And without that, I don't know if Notre Dame would have as strong of a community. So overall, those are the 5 worst things I will say about Notre Dame. I hope you enjoyed. In the next video, I will be talking about the 5 best things I did at Notre Dame. So hopefully you enjoy that. And if you want to watch that, the video will be right here.